what's your name and what group did you first start out in?
Okay, my name is Jimmy Sturkey. They call me Sturk. Very first group that I started out with was called the Clintonian Cubs. How we got that word, that name actually, there was an older group that lived in the Lincoln projects, the Lincoln housing where we grew up. They were called the Clintonians, and they took us on as their little kids, little baby brothers. So we took their name, the Clintonians, and added the Cubs to it. Back in 1957, we were 9 and 10 years old. Started out rehearsing in the hallways, as most times it's where the Doo-Wop started, getting that sound. And our first manager was actually my cousin. The group was formed of myself, my younger brother, and my three cousins. One of the other cousins, the Johnson brothers, their father, Mr. Al Johnson, became our manager. So he was the one that actually got us out there, got us the uniforms together, and started promoting us. So much so that we locally were doing pretty well. Had our own little fan club going, and ended up going to the Apollo in 1957 as 9 and 10-year-olds. We actually were the opening act for it. So you gave me some information with the Dr. Jive Rhythm and Blues review back in '57. We were the opening act, the youngest opening act for the Apollo. And we were there for 5 weeks, which was the longest time ever in terms of us being a young group, but also being on that show for that long. The way we got on the show was we had to do the amateur hour at the Apollo. And back then, if you won 5 times in a row, you actually ended up being on a show. And that's how we got to that show. Now,
And I guess, did you make that record before the amateur hour? Or?
that record was made just after the amateur hour. And as a matter of fact, I could say we boast of being I guess the youngest and the first independent label. My brother's label was an independent label made up by Mr. Johnson. And one of the celebrities, I call him a celebrity, one of the guys who actually wrote music for us was Jimmy Castor. And, I think You're Just My Size was one of the songs, and I think that was the one he wrote the lyrics to. Yeah.
And did he present those songs to you and your?
Well, yeah, he was a friend of the guys who were in the older group. He knew them. They all grew up together. And actually, there were 2 brothers who lived in the same building. They introduced him to us. And he heard us singing. So he said, yeah, I want to write something for you guys. So You're Just My Size was the song that he actually wrote for us.
And do you remember what studio you guys recorded that at? Or?
The studio, if I remember correctly, was located on 125th Street. There was a studio there. A couple of people used to go in to rehearse too. So I think it was that studio, if I remember correctly. It's been a while, so yeah.
That's a lot of fun. And I guess after that one record, you guys went to you said the Apollo. And what happened after the Apollo show? You guys kind of fizzled out?
Well, after the Apollo, yeah, we kind of got involved in other things, I think. And some of the guys, I kind of lost interest. Then, so we kind of split up. I mean, when I say cousins, we all grew up together as kids. So we just took on titles as family members. But at some point, some of the family members just kind of lost interest. I just continued because that was my love. I loved singing, I loved writing, and so I just continued to do that. Right after the Apollo, we didn't do much of anything else after that. And as a matter of fact, it wasn't until maybe about 10 years later, 10 or 11 years later, that we actually started doing some other things. It was 17 that I joined another group after that. Yeah.
Cool. So after you joined that other group, and what year did you guys start the Millionaires? I guess from the Clintonian Cubs to the Millionaires.
Well, the Clintonian Cubs was 57, and what was it, 64, 65?
No, I think we're more like 63.
63, 1963.
And in between that period, did you sing with any other groups or mess around?
No, just singing, around people inviting me to sing in certain different places for myself with respect to that. But of course, then even with the Millionaires, we all grew up in the same place. It was still at the Abraham Lincoln houses. So we came together. That place, the Abraham Lincoln houses, was I would say was a well of talent. On both sides of the streets, we had competing singing groups. So there were a lot of groups going on back and forth, and so that we came together. I think basically I'm trying to remember if were we with other groups or we just came together.
Oh, we came together so sometime around 63.
Yeah.
But prior to 63, after I had left college in 62, Clarence Jackson and I started a group of 5 guys. And by 63 is when we pulled you in because the perception of us was very clear as to what we needed to do, because every place that we sang, people would say, wow, that harmony is out of sight.
Yeah.
They never gave the lead singer any props, at which point I called Sturk. I brought Sturk in and got rid of the lead, and then all of a sudden things changed in terms of their perception of us, in terms of the adjectives they would use in regards to describing what we were doing.
Cool.
Right.
Just quickly, I guess, to finish up about
Right.
the Clintonian Cubs.
Yeah.
Do you have any other, interesting stories from that period?
Well, not basically, the Apollo was the big thing for us. Like I said, we were there for 5 weeks because we had won the amateur hour, and I used to boast that we were making more money than our parents because we got paid pretty well during that time during the 5 weeks that we were there. So again. Just taking in the accolades of having been recorded and listening to our stuff on radio and being the youngest group to ever open as an act at the Apollo. That was about it. And unfortunately, like I said, some of the guys lost interest and we kind of just faded away.
I guess when you first went to the Apollo for the amateur hour, going back quickly, how was that experience just walking up on that stage with all that history there?
The Apollo is how can I say it? If you make it there, like you say about New York, if you make it here, you make it anywhere. If you can make it at the Apollo, you were considered good. That was the toughest crowd to ever please. And of course we were scared to death, 9 and 10 years old. But I think what got us through was that we had a lot of support. I'd like to say at least a third of the audience were people that we grew up with. So they cheered us on, they got us going. We had our fan club there, and when we went on, because of the love of the music that we had, I think that was the thing that really bolstered our confidence and our courage to go on that stage. But we never thought to have, we might win, but one time maybe, yeah. Second time we came back, we won. It still surprised us. 5 times in a row, that was something.
I bet that was special.
Yeah.
I bet it was hard thinking about you're going to beat out all these other people and then
Well, yeah. I mean, and thinking about who we were competing with, because a lot of the people who came there as amateurs, later on in years, I think a lot of them became professionals and really, made a big name for themselves. And we didn't think about it at that time because we were just kids having fun. But the competition was always tough at the Apollo. And, not just competing to please the audience, but just, singing against some of the talent that came on that stage was awesome. Yeah.
And I guess when you were the opening act for the Dr. Drive show,
Right.
did it get any easier as it went on, or was it still like that, those chills every time you'd walk on?
I think it got a little easier, and I think why it got easier is that being in the company of professionals that we were in, you know, and we were in the company of those professionals who were on that show, that's where we actually got our musical education. We used to sit in those, you know, sit in everybody's dressing room and hear the stories, you know, hear all of the horror stories about the business. You know, guys used to say, listen, don't sign this and don't sign that, and make sure you got this and make sure you got something else going on for you. They educated us on the music business, and it got us to a point where I think we felt a little more confident about dealing with the aspect of the business end of it at 10 years old. And of course, you know, to be in the company of people like Frankie Lyman, Lil Anthony and the Imperials, the Flames, the Skyliners, the Cadillacs, these guys were legends. They were legends. So I mean, you know, the feeling of being in that environment was breathtaking, you know. But again, we learned a lot from them, and I think that was one of the things that, for myself, that endorsed my feelings of being, I'm going to be in this forever.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I guess, is there anything else you want to add about that, because that period of your life with music?
I don't know if I can. I mean, you know, like I said, where we grew up, there was always a musical challenge. There were groups that would start at all, you know, out of every building. I forgot how many buildings were in that thing, but out of every building there was a group, and then, you know, we used to have challenges. We used to go in the park, or we'd go in the, you know, somebody's, you know, down in the basement of one of the buildings and challenge other groups. You know, and that's how that's how we really built up our repertoire. We also built up our skills.
So you guys as like 10-year-olds, you guys used to try to out-sing like 17, 18-year-old groups?
We tried to out-sing our senior group.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it got to a point where I think we really did, because at some point the Clintonians kind of faded. They were a good group, but again, they had harmony, great harmony. But we had an act. You know, as 9 and 10-year-olds, we had an act, and we used to do the comedy skits, and we did all of that other stuff. So we got good grooming and good stage presence, you know, from being in the company of celebrities, but also, as I said, our manager, Mr. Johnson, he was one who really groomed us for that.
Yeah. Perfect. I guess you mentioned the stage presence. You guys used to do like crazy dance steps, comedy routines.
We used to wear wigs and hats. Yeah, you know, doing the splits and stuff. But, you know, we used to do the splits where one guy would push the head down and put it up like he's bouncing like a yo-yo. Yeah, we did we did everything that we thought possibly could entice the audience to like us and to love us and to love what we were doing. So yeah, we did it all. It wasn't just that we could sing well. We put on a show, and I think that was the thing, like I said, that was tailored by Mr. Johnson. He said, I want you guys to be entertainers, not just singers.
Perfect. And then, just quickly going back, when you were at the amateur hour and you were winning all those shows, were you guys doing the same songs, or were you guys like doing your own songs, or just cover songs?
Well, we had our own material. We had our own material. I think initially when we first started, we were doing cover songs. But I think at that point, Mr. Johnson was saying, you know, everybody's heard those songs. I don't know that they're going to get over. So we started doing our own material. And I think doing that is what changed the whole thing about what the audience saw. Those songs that everyone else was doing, they had heard by those other people. But they had never heard original stuff, you know, from a group really that at some point they were unknown. Yeah. We were unknown. So I think that's really what got us over when we started coming out with the original stuff. And even with respect to what the band members were saying, you know, say, you guys are good. You used to cover, and they used to say the same thing about the Millionaires. We used to cover all of the notes and all of the harmonies that they would play in the band. And to them, that was something unique. You know?
Perfect. Well, I guess that's all I have for you about the Clintonian Cubs.
Yeah.
Is there anything you wanna say to people about that group?
Well, you know, of course, you know, you always wish that certain things continued. You know, I don't know where we would have been if we had been able to just continue to stay together, or even had the right kind of input, or been able to get the right contacts. But that was a rough time back then in the 50s to try to, I guess, to really try to get into a record company and be young as we were. and unknown. But I think that it was something, like I said, that benefited me in terms of, just building my love for the music and generating that passion that keeps me going even now.
Perfect. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.